people of West Papua too, so I'm going to introduce our speaker this evening. All right, so in association, welcome everyone this evening. In association with the Talanoa series of Las Vegas, Salt Lake City, San Mateo, California, and here, the City College of San Francisco's Critical Pacific Island Studies, we are delighted to present to you our 7th annual Talanoa series fall semester. The word tala in Pacific languages means story, while the word noa means to tie or to bind. When the two words are put together, they form the word Talanoa, which translates to connecting stories together. The Talanoa series and our mission has always been to bring our students, guests, and communities together to share and connect stories, experiences about the topics and issues that shape Indigenous Pacific communities across our vast ocean. Born and raised in the village of Falaniu, American Samoa, Dr. Andrew Pati Ayang credits his tenacious curiosity and strong sense of discovery as a scientist to his Samoan roots and upbringing. His passion for research developed in high school as a consequence of the emergent synergy between traditional and Western education that blended the art of healing by Samoan tauleseas, or medicinal healers, and the conventional expertise of Western educators, and particularly the efforts of his high school chemistry teacher, Dr. Jose Rose. Through this collaborative atmosphere, Dr. Ayang was inspired to transform Samoan medicinal plants into a natural pesticide to help control mosquito populations and ultimately the spread of dengue fever in the South Pacific. Dr. Ayang presented his findings at the Pacific Symposium for Science and Sustainability in Hawaii, where he claimed top prizes for 3 years and further participated in the United States Junior Symposium. Upon graduation from Taufuna High School, Dr. Ayang received an academic scholarship to attend the University of New Mexico, where he received a Bachelor's of Science in Molecular Biology. He was also awarded the prestigious Gates Millennium Scholarship for 10 years, which helped fund his undergraduate and graduate education. He pursued his graduate studies and Doctor of Philosophy degree in biological chemistry at the University of California, Los Angeles, where his dissertation focused on membrane protein complexes important for intracellular communication and host parasite invasion. And I hope he deconstructs or let us know what the hell that means. Presently, Dr. Ayang is a postdoctoral fellow at Genentech, where he combines biochemistry, immunology to dissect the role of serine proteases in human diseases. That's why I didn't do science. He continues to promote science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, or STEM fields, among Samoans and other Pacific Islanders, is actively engaged in organizing the local American Samoa Symposium, and hopes to create a pilot Samoa STEM prize to support and encourage high school students to explore biology, engineering, and medicine. Dr. Ayang's talk tonight will focus on how this curiosity and sense of discovery are deeply rooted in Samoan culture and traditions, and why it is important for Samoan and Pacific Islander generations to reclaim these cultural qualities in an attempt to infuse them with fields in the sciences. Ladies and gentlemen, let's please welcome Dr. Andrew Pati Ayang.
Thank you for that introduction. I'll try my best to deconstruct. So I realized I made an error. Can anyone spot the error on my slide? What was that? Yeah, so it was yesterday. So technically, this is the end of my talk. I'll get back to eating. So, Talofa. I think we can do better than that. He's from Leone High School. I'm from Tafuna High School. The best. Talofa! Talofa lava, kiorana, maloe lelei, whakalofa lahiatu, hula vinaka. Namaste, half a day, aloha, and hello. Let's not forget the Americans. Wa fia mōri le futiafu e tasi, o lupe foi sa vau se le ne o fui whaatasi. O tongi pai le ave whingalo le atua, e ne asa whamoimoina, wa whamane no malo uso, te whawhine, te māmatina, sui o atu nu ese Pasifika manlala, le langi mama, ma sufo maua, tatu Talanoa, o te wha i le ne yes. Seeds cascading down a waterfall gather at the calm of the pool below. Birds of different bushes now fly in unison. Like the seeds in the birds, it is God's will that this day hoped for. A celebration of our diversity under clear skies and in good health. And upon the common ground that is Pacific, that is Talanoa, share stories and celebrate. So this was a little introduction. It's called, in Samoan culture, it's called the Tuvaoma. And it's a greeting to you all, to parents, family, especially the Polynesian Association City College. And also gratitude for this invitation. Whaftai. So today I'll be talking about science, culture, and community. So this is actually a title that I did not choose. It's a title that was chosen for me by David and the club here. And so, I mean, I could talk about science and perfectly fine with that. But then they gave me a challenge, of course. So the challenge here is to fuse these three aspects that define my work as well as who I am. So can anyone tell me what this compound is? It's okay, when I saw it, I didn't know myself. So this is actually prostatin. So this is a compound that was isolated from the bark of the mamala plant, which is a traditional Samoan plant, medicinal plant. And it's currently, well, this year, it'll be in clinical trials for the treatment and hopefully the cure of HIV. And this was discovered actually in Samoa when, who I'll talk about later on in the talk, Paul Cox, this famous botanist, ethnobotanist who traveled to Samoa. He was actually a missionary, a Mormon missionary who went for his mission. But he got to know the villagers as well as the medicinal healers and started interviewing them. So one of the healers, her name is Epinisa Mawingoa, had gone through hundreds and hundreds of these plants, but plant 37, it's called Remedy 37, was this mamala plant. And in Samoan culture, it's used, Samoan traditions, it's used as a treatment for fever sama-sama, which is hepatitis, viral hepatitis. And I believe at the time there was a big interest in the discovery of antiviral compounds, especially because of the rise in HIV infected as well as the AIDS community. And so the challenge for me here is to combine science, culture, and community. It's this really nice trifecta, so I try to like squeeze everything in because that's where they belong, tightly and next to each other. But the more I prepared, research and prepared for this talk, I realized that there's actually a lot of disconnect. And so I think that's a challenge for generations and communities to get together. So I'll talk about some of the stories. After all, it's a night of Talanoa. I'll talk about how I became a scientist, where this journey started, the failures, a lot of failures, some successes, and I'll also talk about a story of what gets me up every morning, and this is really my job, which I'm really excited about. I just started 3 months ago, so hopefully that'll continue for the next 3 months. And also, of course, I need to give credit where credit is due. So I'll talk about some of the inspirations from the culture and growing up in Samoa. And of course, the challenge that I was talking about, that is preserving traditions of healing. So I want to pose this question right now so that we have some sort of dialogue later on in my talk. And I think the challenge here is that so one of the biggest tragedies in our generation is really the loss of a lot of indigenous traditions, stories, and cultures. And one of these losses would be medicinal healing. And so the challenge is for us to reclaim our interest in traditional healing, learn from our elders, and giving our elders the responsibility to teach our generation so that we can continue this. And at the end, so I had some ideas that I would like to propose on how we could preserve these traditions, but I hope to hear from you and we can discuss about it. And so at the end, I'll talk about the Talanoa Prize. And David mentioned what Talanoa is, and it's a Samoan term for a medicinal healer. So there are not many right now, but there are a lot of women, Talanoa, but traditionally it used to be both women and men, but it wasn't until the arrival of Christianity where they forbid men from because it was considered sort of witchcrafty. So they forbid men from this, and instead they gave men positions in the church, being a deacon or a priest. So they were forbidden from this. So there are very few men Talanoa, but most of them are women. So the Talanoa Prize is an initiative that my chemistry teacher and I, we started, and we hope to pilot the program in 2017. And this is essentially a scholarship for an incentive to encourage students to pursue their inner Talanoa, pursue science. So whenever you meet people, they ask you who you are, where you come from, and usually what you do. So I'm a protein biochemist and a structural biologist by training. So essentially, they can deconstruct that. What that is I study proteins. So my education, my career focuses on proteins because proteins, so we have our DNA, and DNA encodes for different proteins to make up who we are. So by understanding proteins at the structural level, meaning if we know what a protein looks like at the molecular level, we could essentially design drugs that fit, a protein, and you could inhibit the function of this protein, or you can enhance the function of this protein. And the ultimate goal is to cure different diseases, cancer, HIV, and the list goes on, right? So, but why do I do science? I do science because I always have a cliche answer for this when I have small talk with people on the bus. But I'm going to give you the honest answer. And I do science because it's in my DNA. It's in our DNA. It's in the fact that we're being a human by nature allows us to be scientists. We can, it is our nature to ask questions, to be curious, to make observations, and then we can take these observations or take our imaginations and we can do experiments. And this is why I love my job, because I can take something that I think about, in the shower, and then, okay, I should try this experiment. And I have the power to do this experiment to address whatever question that comes to my mind. And I think even more so as Pacific Islanders, this is in our DNA. I mean, being a scientist, I think it's inherent in Pacific Islanders because of just the ability to think and be curious and to explore beyond the shores of where we live. This is how we essentially made the most daring, revolutionizing and grand discovery of the South Pacific. So I think it's in us to be scientists. But as I'll later touch more upon, is that I think maybe because of technology, we've sort of stopped being curious, we've stopped asking questions. So that's this disconnect between science and culture and community that we talked about. And ultimately, I hope my work leads to the cure of different diseases that impact children, infants, our parents, each other. Oh, and feel free to ask questions. I get really nervous about these talks, especially when people don't ask questions. So 0.31%. So despite having this innate ability to be a scientist, this number bothers me. 0.37%. Can anyone guess what that is? So I actually made this math. Sorry.
So people that have gone to where you are from your community?
From my high school. So I actually made this number up last night. 0.37% is the probability of a student from my graduating class going on to become a scientist. So now this is a very generous number. It actually is much lower if you think globally in terms of students in Samoa, as well as different Pacific Islanders. And this is very interesting. It's really interesting to me because my ancestors were scientists, and yet this number is so low. So, but I'll talk about why this number is interesting to me and sort of my journey, and I think my journey can be recapitulated among the different generations and among the youth. So I come from a small village in Samoa, from Talanoa High School, my warriors. Are you from Talanoa High School? Brother. So my dad's a mechanic. My mom she stayed at home, but she's sort of like the rock star genius teacher. They always, encourage us to you have to learn multiplication. In second or third grade, I learned how to multiply to 12. But now these students can learn this when they're 5 years old. And I was always really competitive, and I think this came from them. So, and when I remember in the second, third, fourth grade, we had this competition called the mental math. So they give you like 50 problems, really easy problems, and they give you maybe 10 minutes to solve all of these problems. So there was an American girl, Caucasian girl, who just moved to Samoa, and she always beat me. Second grade, she beat me. I was second place. So I studied really hard. I did math with my fingers, everything I could do math with. The third grade, she beat me again. And guess what happened in the fourth grade? I won. Guess what happened to her? She was sick. She had dengue fever, which, as I will show later, I got. So she had dengue fever, bless her heart, but I won, and it was the best feeling in the world to experience. So I still have that in me. I'm always competitive, but when I moved to the U.S., I realized I really wasn't that smart. You know, there was this gap in education, and I realized this when I got to college. So which I'll talk about later on. So I got a scholarship called the Gates Millennium Scholarship, and are there any high school students in the audience? I see 3 who are really young, just like me. So I encourage parents, if you know any Pacific Islander, any student of color, any minority who is going to be graduating in 12th grade, the deadline for this is January 1st. There are 10 essays, which don't even get me started. It's ridiculous how many essays they ask you to write. It's actually more than what you write just to get into grad school. So that's how. So, but once you get it, 10 years fully funded. So I try to encourage some students, like, we'll do it. And then at the very end, it's like 10 essays, we can't do this. So please encourage. I think they're heading into. So every year, they select 1,000 students to get this scholarship, and they fund you all the way until you get your PhD. And coming from Samoa, this was the option. It's either this or football, or going into the military. And this 0.37% that I mentioned earlier, well, that's 1 out of 270 students. That's from my graduating class. Now, I saw a different probability for football. It's like 1 in 5 Samoan students can actually, or Pacific Islanders can become football. So it's much easier to be a football player than going to college and being a scientist. And it's even higher for students going into the military. It's actually like 1 out of 3 students. So we need to increase this percentage, get it up to maybe hopefully 90% by the end of my talk. So I got this scholarship. I majored in molecular biology, graduated from the University of New Mexico. Big culture shock. Has anyone been to New Mexico? Oh God. So after the University of New Mexico, I went to UCLA where I got my PhD in biological chemistry. A lot of my training was done in protein chemistry and structural biology. And I graduated at 27, I turned 28 last month. And I now work as a postdoc at this company in South San Francisco called Genentech. It's a fantastic company. They've developed so many cures, so many treatments I didn't know existed. I didn't know there was a treatment for breast cancer until I started working. People were asking, oh, yeah, Genentech, thank you guys for treating breast cancer. I'm like, oh, we treated breast cancer? So, and they have so many. I'm wearing a badge. It's called Kotelic. It's a treatment for psoriasis. And at Genentech, when you get hired, you get a bell. And every time a drug gets approved by the FDA, which means now it's available to the public, they celebrate by ringing this bell at different locations of the company. So it's a fantastic company. They look for scientists. They look for anyone who's really interested in getting drugs out. So you can do marketing, all kinds of things, and be able to work at Genentech. And of course, my biggest interest is to cure diseases. But that's a lot easier said than done. So people always ask me, despite this percentage, the odds are against you. How did you get to where you are? How did you get up to this stage? So if you look here, this is my boss, my graduate advisor. So, but it all started in Samoa when, and I consider myself really lucky. If I hadn't met this man, Dr. Joes Rose, I would not be where I am today. And it is through him that he asked this question for me. I mean, I was in the 9th grade, knowing how I could ask a question like this. But he asked this question and taught me every step of the scientific method, did experiments together, and this is what opened my eyes to science. So what's the message here, the take-home message here is really mentorship and role model. And if you find the right role model, mentor, then everything is downhill from there. So this is Josh Rose, and we asked the question, can some medicinal plants be used to combat mosquitoes and hopefully treat dengue fever so that Irene, my friend from second grade, would, again, right? And so dengue fever plagues the South Pacific nations. In Samoa and Samoan Islands, just between March and June, there were 725 cases. It's treatable, you just have to take a lot of fluids. But it can be very fatal for people who get it while they're on the island, and then they come to the US and they go back, and so multiple exposure can be really fatal. So just a warning. And so we asked the question, can Samoa medicinal plants, which is abundant in Samoa, can we use this to combat mosquitoes? And so what we did is, who knows what this plant is? No. So it's a very famous medicinal plant throughout the Pacific. It's commercialized in Hawaii like crazy, right? The juice, everything from like losing weight. In Samoa, it's used to treat burns as well as internal bleeding, which I had no idea. So I'm curious how it does it. But we also use it to kill mosquitoes. So we went through different medicinal plants. I think we screened maybe about 20 plants, and we found that if we take the extract, current extract from the leaves of this plant, you could actually prevent the eggs, mosquito eggs, from hatching. And essentially, you could stop the life cycle there. We later showed that if you allow the eggs to hatch, to form a larva right before the adult forms, you could also prevent the larvae from developing into an adult. And the adult is the bad guy that bites you. So we never actually tested on the adults because it's really hard to catch these mosquitoes. You just want to kill them, right? So, but what we showed from this study is the potential of these untapped resources that we have on island, very inexpensive, you can make your own extract. The potential of these to become pesticides that are safe because we drink them for different ailments. Their potential to use this to solve the problems that we face. So that was the end of that study. So no one actually continued this, but we did write up a nice paper that we were able to publish. And this was all done while I was in high school. And all because of this guy. And so whenever I'm writing an essay, people want me to talk about my life, the credit goes to him, because had not for him, I would not be where I am today. And so he's my mentor who I started the Talanoa Prize with. And he once said in 2017, that's when his daughter graduates from high school. Okay, so here's a picture from 2003 actually. So I participated in the science symposium. The good-looking guy on the left.
Where's Irene?
Thank you. So, and I participated in the science symposium. I worked on this study for 3 years, and I was able to, win different awards and ultimately get a scholarship to come to the U.S. So this is everyone on my right. They all went to the military, so no one really pursued science. So it's pretty. So, but then this was all in Samoa. I felt like I was like the smartest kid there. But then I got to college, and that's the reality. I got a C, and I felt like, this was it. I was really dumb. I mean, coming to America where you think your dreams are realized, well, my dreams shattered in that classroom. And on top of that, your self-confidence, everything sort of diminished when you no longer get the comfort of being in Samoa. So what I realized from failing several of my courses was that there's the gap in education where we are far behind from our mainstream fellow brothers and sisters. So I got a C in organic chemistry. C in my college was a passing grade. So I was not allowed to retake this. And I wanted to go to med school, I wanted to be a doctor. Now, would you get in med school with a C? Definitely not, right? So how a C in organic chemistry and a little white lie changed my life. I was also broke when I was in college. I talk about these scholarships as if I was like really living a lavishing lifestyle, but I was really broke. I did not want to call my parents for money, so I wanted to get a job. I did not want to work outside of campus, but I wanted to work where I could still get some, educational experience. So I applied to a program. There was a research program that was paying $12,000 a year for a high school. It's ridiculous, right? It's great. It's like, yeah. So I applied to this program, and I had my interview. And so this is before I got the C in organic chemistry. And then the lady asked me a question like, oh, what do you want to be after you graduate from high school? I said, I really want to be a doctor. She pulled out a paper, wrote down several names, said, okay, you can contact these people. Thanks a lot for applying. So I did not get the position. It was really strange. And like, I wore my skirt to that interview, so I was wondering if, I didn't know. So I went back and I looked at the description. It was actually a program that was specifically catered to students who want to get PhDs in science. There was a second sister program. I went to that program and I'm like, okay, I don't want to be a doctor anymore. I want to get a PhD. But I mean, I wanted to be a doctor. So I applied to this program. They asked me, what do you want to be when you get out? I'm like, I want to be a scientist. And so that little white lie, well, she fell for it. This is Maggie Washburn. She is the president of the SACMAS Association, who was a professor of biology at my college. She accepted me to the program. I started working in a lab, started doing research, and I realized this is what I want to do. So I don't condone lying, but if you have to. So, and then I joined, Maggie runs a program called the Initiative to Maximize Student Development. And this is a program for underrepresented minorities to get experience and also to get $12,000 a year. That's amazing. So, and that started my fascination for biological systems. And you're seeing here is my little niece, Alexis. She's really sweet, but she's not. She's actually quite the devil, so don't fall for that. So Alexis, like all of us, we're composed of different cells and tissues. We're really complex, and that's why it's really difficult to treat a lot of diseases because of this complexity. So our bodies are composed of fat cells, brain cells, red blood cells that carry oxygen throughout the body, nerve cells. Now, when any of these different tissues don't function properly, then that's the start of disease. So I was interested in this, but more so I was interested in the complexity that happens within a specific tissue. So if we look closely within these different cells, they actually have a sort of common structure, which is even more complex. So this is looking within one of those cells, and it has all of these different compartments or subcellular organelles, what we call organelles. And it's these compartments that actually determine the fate and how this cell behaves. So basically a cell that goes rogue, something's going on in there. So what we discovered when I was a grad student is that it's the communication between these different compartments that actually dictates how a cell functions. So when a cell goes rogue or causes cancer, something is wrong in here. And what we showed is how this communication takes place. And so what I'm showing here, So this is what we discovered. So we actually looked at the protein level. We saw the structure of these proteins, and we know for a fact that this is how these different organelles communicate. As you can see, what's inside this envelope are 4 different proteins that have been shown. If these proteins become defective, the cells die, and of course that leads to different types of diseases. But this is at the molecular level. And what we showed is that these proteins, they have this shape. They have like sort of a globular shape, so you can sort of see through a pore. And the communication actually happens through these pores. So different signals that are transferred between different organelles go through these pores, and they work like almost like a tunnel. And so this is a form of communication. So what we did is we designed different inhibitors. If we can block these pores, the cells become really sick.
How did you model that?
So the structures were solved by X-ray crystallography, and then we also determined another structure by cryo-electron microscopy. So cryo-EM gives you this boomerang envelope, and then the crystal structures were solved independently from this. And so we can put this in, so it's sort of a way of validating whether your structure is correct. And as you can see, the crystal structure fits perfectly into this envelope, suggesting that, okay, our model is more or less correct. Right? So this is a discovery that we made in grad school, and this was my major discovery number 1. And so then I was interested in at the disease level. So one of the biggest diseases in the world today for the last 1,000 years is malaria, which kills 2,000 children every day and millions of people every day, and all because of this mosquito. So infected mosquitoes transfer the parasite, and the parasite infects red blood cells. And we wanted to see how this infection takes place. So how the infection takes place, this is what a red blood cell looks like, and this is an infected red blood cell which has a parasite inside. Now to kill this red blood cell, the parasite secretes or releases toxins into the red blood cell, and this eventually destroys the red blood cell.
Can you full screen it again, please?
PC. So, because of our background, in looking at what proteins look like, we asked the question: if we know what these proteins look like, can we design drugs that can inhibit the release of these toxins, right? So we show that these are the proteins that form the pore that releases the toxin. So, and we didn't know what the structure of these look like. So that was my second project in grad school. And this is what they look like. So we solved these structures, and we know exactly what this protein, HSP101, and this is what they look like. And you can see you have these big barrels here, and then some parts of the protein you have this shape. Now, the next big project is, now that we know what these look like, can we design drugs that fit specifically and inhibit this, the function of this protein?
Did they not know how it looked like because was there a process, what was the process for you to figure that out?
So the technique called crystallography that I mentioned and cryomicroscopy. So you can only solve the structures of proteins via those two techniques. And so a lot of people, well, the other reason why no one figured this out was because we just actually identified what these proteins are. So once you know what the target is, then you can do more detailed experiments.
Can those parasites get into fat cells also?
Not that I know of. They actually only target red blood cells. So these are so making new discoveries is the best feeling in the world. And the reason why it is, it's because basically you are the first person in the world to know what these look like. So that gives you, bragging rights. And of course it gives you, it opens a new field to different researchers in the world. Now some other person can design drugs that can help and eventually lead to the cure to some of these diseases. So now I work for Genentech, where they focus on all kinds of diseases, and all they care about, they really care about designing drugs. And so Genentech actually just opened up a big small molecule discovery program. And they're taking a lot of these small molecules from plants. They're exploring, different medicinal plants, especially the Chinese Academy of Science, which has a huge collection of medicinal plants. And I think this is something that I think would benefit the medicinal plants in the South Pacific. It's a good way to record everything so that when healers move on to the afterlife, we still have access to this knowledge. And so indigenous Pacifica knowledge and medicine hold great promise for curing many of the world's disease. And one was that prostaglandin that I mentioned for curing HIV. Now these are just 4 of thousands of plants that found in all over the South Pacific. So this is the kava that we just had today. It has many uses in addition to what we experience today. And also this is, these different plants are used for treating sores, like internal bleeding, hepatitis, all kinds of diseases. And it just blows your mind that, like, how did these healers know, which plants? I mean, weren't they afraid of, I'd be scared of, like, drinking something, right? But this comes from years, like thousands of years of observations, trial and error, testing different plants. I'm sure someone might have been, killed by being, they do their own clinical trials. But this is the knowledge that's really important. Like this knowledge needs to be passed down from our healers to their children. So typically, these healing traditions are learned through families. So it's passed down from, usually stays within the family. Now I know there were 3 medicinal healers in the village that I'm from, and they've all passed away, and none of their children have taken over this responsibility. Or maybe they passed away by an accident, so there was no time to pass on this important gift. And so problems like this can really create this generational gap that I think we need to bridge back in order for us to keep this momentum going, because the real losers in this is really our healers, because these plants hold cure for diseases that our children would get in the future, and if we don't have that knowledge, then there's really no point of having all of this bottom knowledge. So I want to talk about prostaglandin again, which is this famous one that could be the cure for HIV. HIV is the big disease. The problem with HIV is that there are different stages. Now there's a stage where a person can become undetected. What that means is that the active virus is, you cannot see that in blood, but there is a latent virus where it's hidden somewhere. Now the power of prostaglandin is actually to get that hidden virus out so that we can use other methods of treatment to kill it. And so this is the problem that has boggled many scientists' minds for years. We can't get the latent virus out. Now they've showed in different trials that the use of prostaglandin can do that. And so again, Paul Cox is a famous botanist who went to Samoa, interviewed different medicinal healers, and found this plant. And when they told him that this plant could be used to treat, that we use it on a daily basis to treat hepatitis, he immediately contacted the National Cancer Institute in the US. They flew scientists to Samoa to take some of these plants. And during that process, the Falealupo Covenant was formed. So Falealupo is a village in Samoa where the plant was initially discovered by Paul Cox. So the plant, the mamala plant, is found all over Samoa. But Falalupo was where it was. So they had this covenant, and essentially what this is for is to, it's almost like a patent that gives the people of Samoa, traditional healers, equal rights to, this is their property as well as the US. So any money that we can make out of this in the future when this becomes a drug, 50% was the amount that would go to Samoa. And this will go to build, to build schools and provide resources that we need to train students to become their own Talanoa. So this is a very important covenant, and in fact, according to Wikipedia, this is the first document that give rights to where traditional healers have some sort of right over their knowledge, over traditional knowledge in medicine. So a lot of different cultures are now taking heed of these and also making their own contracts where they get rights to what they rightfully own. So, while we're still talking about plants, malaria, the most potent, most popular treatment for malaria today is artemisinin. And this, in the 1960s, a lot of people were dying from malaria, and the US had exhausted all of its resources. So they contacted China, which has this huge library of different compounds from all of traditional herbal medicine. And they instructed Professor Yu Tu to screen all of these libraries to try, we need a solution for malaria because so many people have died from this disease. And so what she did, she screened thousands and thousands of these different plants and showed that artemisinin could actually treat malaria in people who were infected. And so, but of course you have to test it. So she tested it on herself first to make sure it was safe before she could do clinical trials. Basically the clinical trials is she prepared the extract. She went to a village where a lot of men who were working in the rainforest were infected, and basically just prepared the extract and passed it around the village. And a lot of these men recovered just within 2 days. But the problem is that there were some men or some villagers who never recovered. And what turns out, what the problem was that how they prepared the extract or the medicine and these different villages is that they boiled the leaf to get the extract out, and then they drink that. So that was a method that Yu used to prepare the extract. So, and then boiling can damage the different particles in the plant. So what she did, instead of boiling, she just mixed it with water, prepared the extract. Now this extract was a potent one and was able to cure all the other villagers. So she got the Nobel laureate in medicine this year, and very well deserved. And she shares it with 2 other scientists. And so I talked about this generational gap, and this slide by itself, I think it serves to be by itself, is a call to preserve Pacifica traditional medicine. And like I said, a lot of traditional healers have passed on without leaving this gift to their children, which is a traditional way of passing on this gift. And so I thought about 3 different strategies that we could, I think, could be implemented. And has anyone thought of something? Well, feel free to speak now if you want some input.
I had a question.
Yeah.
Because you talk about preserving native traditions and also, working for a company that probably has stake in packaging stuff, packaging native plants, right? So how does that work in terms of, I feel like part of the native traditions being lost is the fact that the globalized economy makes it that medicine is being pushed on people, Western medicine, right? So you have the idea of profit, marketing, all that stuff, right? And the idea that this is better for you, right? So you've got, on one hand, you have native traditions, on the other hand, you've got these companies who are pushing these products and saying, this is what's going to get better, right? So there's the idea of patenting, right? The idea that you're going to make money off this. So I'm wondering what your sort of opinion is on the idea that these companies, right? I get it, it's profit, right? It's also trying to come up with new ideas, science. But on the other hand, it feels like it's connected in the sense that you're losing tradition, but you're also pushing this new medication.
That's an excellent point, wasn't it?
Um,
That is an excellent point, and I think this is why this is important. The preservation of medicine could only work if we have people who understand patenting property to really give, the rights to traditional healers and different traditional cultures. Sorry, did you have a question?
Actually, question and statement. As a traditionalist, I really have a problem with the word cure, because that's not, in our traditions, we're not about curing, we're about healing. To expand on what was just stated, is that what we are talking about is intellectual knowledge. While the medicine is good, I understand that, but what's being lost is that there's not the focus that this is a knowledge of a people, and that's what's not being shared. That is a form of genocide. That is cultural genocide.
Exactly.
And that really concerns me, because historically how indigenous peoples have been used by science and for science is that we still, there's the subtext of they're primitive, they're savage, they're not important. What's important is our modern, sorry to say it, white world.
Exactly, and these 2 points are in unison, and I completely agree. And historically, that has been the case, where no credit has been given, no profits have been shared to those who rightfully own this knowledge. And that's what I think is important for, that's what this call is for, to really preserve this traditional knowledge. So the Talanoa covenant has been the template for many different cultures, so that they rightfully own, the gene and the plants that this parent compound comes from. Now, there's also a lot of concerns about. So the mamala plant actually doesn't make a lot of this compound. So, which means that we have to grow more plants, commercialize the plants, and eventually it could lead to extinction of these plants. So and that's where Western science comes in, I think, is to understand how this compound is produced in these plants, and maybe we can create, in the lab, a way that won't be harmful to, the rainforest, won't be harmful to the plants themselves, but recreate this plant. But it doesn't mean that because of that technology that they can take those rights from those who really own it. So the Talanoa, if you look at a lot of articles, this is a template for future, indigenous groups to really hold on to their knowledge. And so what I wanted to share is actually we could create sort of an encyclopedia of Pacifica medicine. Now, feel free to disagree with me, but I think that this encyclopedia should be written in the language of that indigenous community. And so not only will this provide a record of medicine, but it also provides an opportunity for the children to learn the language, respect the history of the drug, and also respect their elders, right? So this is a way to bridge this generational gap, I think. So the other program, the other 2 suggestions, there's this Talanoa apprentice program, which so the Talanoa prize, so this is part of that package, where not only do the recipients get the money for college, but the recipients would be required mandated to work with Talanoa in Samoa around the Pacific, to learn from them, and hopefully have that as a way of passing on our knowledge of medicine to students. And another option, I think another cool idea would be to have a symposium on Pacific medicine, which we do not have. And this would be a safe place for traditional healers in their own language and just within their own culture to share their findings and see if the different Pacific Islanders, whether there's cohesion in the findings, or maybe they'll say, oh, but we've tried this and this actually works better. So it's a way to not only share knowledge, but hopefully we can improve how different medicines are prepared, right? So that's.
I have a question. I'm not a science person at all, and I'm looking at this from a kind of an organizing perspective, actually. In terms of thinking about, you said that you're 0.37%, of folks going to kind of PhDs and things like that, going to Samoa. How do you convince the youth who see football or the military as their primary options to do this?
Role model. I think mentorship. To be honest, if I hadn't had that mentorship, I would have gone to the military. That would be the only option for me, definitely not football. But that would be the option for me. But I had a role model who showed me that, hey, science works. This is another opportunity. And I think that's really lacking in a lot of our communities. So mentorship and basically just holding your hand, showing you the ropes so that you can pursue science and then eventually continue to pursue science in college.
I was going to say that the money that would come from the use of this could pour back into education and mentorship.
Yeah, that is an excellent point. Yeah. So profits. So the thing with these profits, so to get a drug from like a plant to FDA approved, so that we ring the bell at Genentech, it takes 10 to 20 years. So, and money only comes after that. So, but it's a recognition of an acknowledgement of that this medicine belongs to thousands of years of observations, clinical trials within different communities. It's that acknowledgement I think is best paid.
How would you administer this medicine? Like, would it be in like a pill form, like if you were going to give it to people, or if you were going to use it as a pesticide, would it be like a spray? Like, how would you think, or how would you guys picture people using it?
So I can't think of a medicine that is a crude extract directly from a plant that's available mainstream. So usually it's required that it's at its simplest form. So basically focusing just on the compound prostaglandins and disregard all the other stuff that comes from the plant. So medicine is always viewed as very simplistic, and that helps to avoid different side effects. So typically Western medicine is either injection or pill, but traditional medicine is really the whole plant. We administer it really by drinking, or by for sores. These plants are chopped up and put directly on your sore. So it's really the plant as a whole, which I think is also, maybe the drug works better within the whole thing, right? But Western medicine.
I just wanted to say that this is such a good thing, a good feeling to hear you as a Taiwan standing here before us and talking about our traditional medicines and how it's being applied in science, right? In real mainstream science, Because growing up, it was really hard. I come from, my mom is from a long line of healers, we're Talanoa. And so we never went to the doctor, And I never thought this was weird until I was old enough to realize, like, why is my teacher sweating me for my doctor's note. We don't go to the doctor. I don't know how to tell them. My mother, we're in Hawaii, right? My mother takes care of us. I don't know how else to tell you. I can show you the medicine. It's junk. I hate drinking it, but you know what I'm saying? And then even amongst our own people, we don't not too much have faith in our medicine because they don't see it like those of us who have an opportunity to see people healed from our touch and our medicine, right? So to hear science backing up these things, it's a breath of fresh air because it allows our people to realize, you know what? You better go look in your backyard, because there's some of our cures back there. How are we gonna I understand that gentleman's comment, and I realize, you know what? It's an iffy thing, but you're right. It's the access to intellect and to the resources that we can't afford. So now it's at this level, we need to find a way to push it forward. Not at a sacrifice, but we need to hold on to some things. While these other things are dwindling, this is something we need to hold on to because not only us are interested, but the whole world will be affected by these things, right? So I applaud you for fighting. I love that you're here, so I just wanted to say that.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thanks. You brought up backyard, and that's an excellent idea. I think as a way to prevent potential extinction of plants, we could create sort of a centralized backyard for Pacifica medicine. Right? I think that's a brilliant idea. And you're right. I think it's fantastic that we have this traditional knowledge, and I think it's also gives us the obligation as healers to treat world diseases. So, and I don't think we should keep, traditional knowledge to ourselves. I think we should also share it with people who have different diseases. So, thank you for bringing that up. So, and this is what Paul Cox, he was interviewed for helping discover prostratin, and he said, and this is really, I treasure this a lot because it says, my only request is if prostratin ever becomes a drug, that people who use it, or anyone, people do not forget that this came with love from the people of Samoa, because that is how these medicines are prepared, spiritually and with love. So I'm going to rush through here. I hope I am not taking up too much time. But Paul Cox, he started Seecology, which was inspired by the Falealupo Covenant. And this is a sort of a fund that helps indigenous communities build schools, protect their rainforests, teach their children cultural traditions. And the second person to get this award, the Seecology Prize, is Chief Fuyono Senyo, and he helped. So basically, the rainforest at Falealupo was going to be sold to a logging company who would cut down the trees. And Paul Cox was there, and he said, I can get you $65,000 to keep the rainforest, because the logging company had the money to buy the rainforest from the people. And it was a poor community at the time, according to the different articles. So they really needed the money. So they gave Paul Cox 6 months to get us this money. And he got the money. He saved the rainforest because he knew that's where the mamala plants was located. And so they had this Falealupo Covenant, and also that inspired Seecology to protect our medicine and our property. So I think it is our responsibility as Pacific Islanders, as people of indigenous communities and cultures, to play a big role in bridging this generation gap. And to do that, we can discover your inner scientist. Ask questions, be curious, imagine, and have fun in the process. Make mistakes and learn from these mistakes. I've made so many mistakes, And usually when I make a mistake, usually when you make a mistake, you'll never forget it again. So make as many mistakes as you can. That way you don't forget to make them again. Find role models and mentors. I think it's really important. Seek opportunities. And when you, whatever you learn, wherever you go, always remember to pass the torch. And I hope that I'm doing that right now for their future. So I did a little bit of research and actually found that there are programs here at City College of San Francisco. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Burgess to Baccalaureate program. So it's a 2-summer program. They just got $17 million to fund this program, and that can go on for many years. So please join this program. This is the type of program that I joined when I was in college. So it's a 2 summers. The first summer is directed research, where you are basically paired with the scientists and they teach you how to do research. And then the second summer is independent research, where you work on your own. You've gotten the experience from the first summer, and then you go on to present this at the San Francisco State Symposium and also to SACMAS, which I will talk about briefly. But you can contact Ron Drucker. He's the contact person here at CCSF. This is his email. So David can send you this slide after. So, like I said, the San Francisco State was awarded $17 million by the NIH to promote diversity in science. So they also have this program called SF Build, which is only at SFU. So as soon as you graduate from college, go on to university. And this is SF Build, again, a very similar program. And they also pay $12,000. I think it's much more now, so I would do it. So, and like I said, find the right mentors, high school teacher, my college professor, and my grad school advisor. So all of these people were instrumental and still are very instrumental in my life as a scientist. So, and I still talk to them. So find mentors, stay in contact with them, build positive relationships, and maintain them. So SACMAS is the biggest. SACMAS, has anyone heard of SACMAS? You heard of SACMAS?
We just restarted the chapter this semester.
You just
Meetings on Fridays at 12.
Is that the chapter here? That's amazing. SACMAS is the biggest science symposium for people of color, for minorities, for underrepresented minorities. And Maggie here, my college advisor, she was last 2-3 years president of SACMAS. And close to 200 students have gotten PhD through the program that Maggie runs. 200 students. And so I'll talk about this next slide, but she encourages everyone to go to SACMAS. Even after I graduated from college, she always calls me like, I want to see what SACMAS, like you need to do what they did here. So yeah, so that's me in there. These are all colleagues, and so this is when I was a grad student. So a lot of these students were in college. So every year I go as a grad student. Now I'm going to go as a postdoc as well. So Genentech also started a club, so we're going to be there. But now you have a club here at City College. So, and they offer scholarships. So I feel like everyone who goes to SACMA gets a travel award. So that pays for your hotel, it pays for your fare, pays for your meals. All you have to do is go present your research. And I think last year, close to 2,000 or 3,000 people went to SACMA. So they basically booked the entire city if they're going to do it. And so Maggie, this year, Maggie has started the National Research Mentoring Network. And this is a slide that I got from Maggie. She had proposed this initiative to the NIH, basically to connect students to scientists, to established scientists. So you can be in this network. You can find any mentor who works, who's a president at the NIH who's president at Genentech, and this will connect students with these different mentors depending on what sort of job that you're interested in. And so to end, I have a couple wishes. So the Talanoa Prize and the apprentice program, so these, I feel they're becoming a reality. And I hope that the ideas that we discussed today can become a reality themselves. This encyclopedia, recognizing traditional healers and centralizing, building a centralized infrastructure for scientific research in itself. And last but not least, one if not all of you is inspired to make impactful discoveries. So here's a picture of future Talanoa. These are a group of high school students from American Samoa who came to the International Science Fair that was hosted by Los Angeles. So I was able to see them. So this is my mentor's daughter. So she might be the first person to get that. So we hope to raise enough money so we can give like maybe $5,000 scholarships to students. So if you have your wallets, it's fine. Yeah, that's it. We are only as great as our imagination and as big as our dream. We are.
Questions?
Good discussion.
I have a question. Sorry. Excuse me. Are there any other Pacific Islander scientists right now whose work we could access online or something? Folks doing stuff that is exciting to you that if you're in the community, can you share some other folks with us that we should look up or check out?
So I know David also knows Ray Samoa. He's a doctor actually at City Hope in Los Angeles, and he does both clinical and lab research on diabetes, hypertension, and so he's in LA. There are other students who are pursuing their PhDs that I know that are in New Zealand. I actually haven't met. Actually, while doing this research, I discovered that there is a professor at the at Brigham Young University who worked with Paul Cox. So every time Paul Cox went to Samoa to give a talk, he also gave a talk in the Samoan language. So there are some pictures where they had in Faleo, they pulled out a white sheet and gave a PowerPoint presentation speaking in our language to our elders and different viewers. So his name is Bao Manamba. So I think he's part professor and also a site assistant coach for football. So athletes and nerds, they have all the good parts.
Yeah, I'm curious, maybe you spoke to this already. The covenant, did that, was that something that was thought out in terms of this body will be respected in their rights? Like there was a concerted effort from the get-go to have something of that nature, or was that something that the community had to fight or advocate for?
Actually, it was, according to the articles that I read, it was Paul Cox actually proposed this idea to the villagers.
Okay.
Before he actually needed to get their consent before he made the call to the National Cancer Institute. So it wasn't until the approval from them that they pursued this. So the covenant was really a collective effort, but mostly driven by the community.
Can you go back to a couple of slides where the thing about the NIH? Yeah.
So there's the Bridges program, which that City College is a part of, and then there's the SF Build. I think I know a Tongan girl who's in SF Build. Her name is Mele Waitali. Yeah. But she's at San Francisco. I met her at the SACNAS program. So she's a master's student at San Francisco State.
So I read that you have promoted STEM to our future generation, or our younger generation. You showed us a picture of the students from Samoa, and yeah, is that how you started in promoting STEM to younger generations, or do you have like an existing one in California? Or?
So I haven't. Because I just finished grad school, and I feel like I have the time now to actually, devote my effort to these things. But I have always been a judge for whenever they have the science symposium and science fairs. I was always they send me papers and I review the papers for the students. So I started through that because I actually started I started through these same competitions symposiums. But last year, just last month, American Samoa had its annual science symposium, and I was able to find 13 of my PhD friends who were all excited about helping judge the fair this year. Because this particular year we had about 25 students submit research papers that they worked on for 6 to 12 months. When I participated, maybe 5 students, but the numbers have skyrocketed. So we needed a lot of judges, and I can't review 25 papers at once. So we found these different judges, and this is sort of how and we help organize, we help modify the competition, make it streamlined, make it fair to students in different schools. Tafuna High School has won for the past 10 years. So, yeah. But now with the new Director of Education in Samoa, so when I was in high school, they could only afford to send one person, and that would be me. And I was, a sophomore, and they want me to fly the plane and just be lost everywhere. So now they have a lot of money. That's why they send big groups. So this is amazing. This is already a big feat.
I know you said that you've only been working at Genentech for about 3 months, so I don't know how much play you have in choosing what you go into. But do you have an influence as far as in what you're researching, and do you look into or research into any benefits of the plants?
So I don't have that much clients yet. So I am a postdoc at Genentech, so I still have someone higher up that I report to. So at the moment I work specifically on whatever project that's given to me by the company. But the postdoc program is 3 to 4 years, so after that, hopefully when I get a real job, then I could pursue something that I want to pursue, and hopefully look into these plants again. Sorry, just to get back to your point, I haven't had. I am actually really interested in working with the communities here in San Francisco, California. So if there's anything that you need, or if there's anything that any one of you need, please feel free to contact me.
Ask a question? So let's all give Dr. Andrew Talanoa. want to present to you, Dr. Ayang, some gifts. Rima, one of our BASA commissioners. So the first gift is a City College shirt. We expect you to wear this to work. So that Genentech knows that you graduated from City. And if it doesn't fit, I'm pretty sure you have a pill there. That will make you big. Or a plant, not a pill. Right. This next one is a coffee mug from City College. And Rima's encouraging that only water go into it.
Not bottles.
So thank you on behalf of our students. And then 2 more gifts on behalf of the students in the BASA Commission. One is a keychain. I've been seeing you ride your bike around here, so I better see this. And then the other is a lanyard. So on behalf of the students in Pacific Studies and the BASA Commission, we really want to thank you for coming tonight to share your expertise, your knowledge, and your alofa. And we wish you well, and we hope to see you here again soon. Always, maybe advising our Sacraments Club. Anyone? Maybe. Okay. So let's give him another round of applause. So also to end our talk tonight, so real quickly, so this is our last Talanoa for the semester. We have 3 great Talanoa speakers coming next spring. The first one in February, which will look at a scholar, Julian Anesi, will look at issues of disabilities and in Pacific Islander communities. Our second one in March is going to be a speaker from the Marshall Islands who's going to come talk about climate change and the rising oceans in the Marshalls and the movement of environmental refugees, kind of a new term being floating around to label new Pacific Islanders who are being forced because of the rising oceans. So that talk will be in March. And then also a Tongan speaker, an artist, and also the launch of Matamai 3, our 3rd anthology. That person will come to talk about his artwork and things that he's doing with his work in order to support the Pacific Islander community nationally. So that's Talanoa. Our 7th annual Talanoa continues next spring with 3 great speakers. And then lastly, tonight, we have a special cake for Dr. Ayang. So we want to invite everyone to help yourselves. There is extra food at the back. Please grab a slice of cake. And then, of course, it is cultural baon, or take food home. There's got hella food, courtesy of Student Equity, State of California. Then lastly, I want to thank our chair, the Department of Interdisciplinary Studies, which puts on many fabulous, great programs. And there are 2 more events this Friday night, one being held by Poetry for the People, and the other by the Pacific Islander Club. So I don't know if Professor Muller wants to say a few words, but if not, let's give her a round of applause. And I also want to give a special shout out to the Director of Student Supporting Students, someone that's always been supporting our communities. Let's give a round of applause to Rick Cantor. And of course, all the students, the Pacific Islander Club, and the BASA Commission, and of course, in critical Pacific Island studies. Okay, so help yourself to food in the back. Come say hello to Dr. Ayang up here, and then we're going to take some pictures up here. And then you guys be safe. Have a great evening.